Of course, you guys know today we are talking about fostering and adopting in your community. And so I've got some experts that are here with me. I have my friend Monica, I have my sister Anna Marie, I have my good friend Zakia, and another one of my good friends, Sarah, who is here and going to share their experiences with us. Listen, this is probably the biggest group I've ever interviewed on this podcast. So I got some questions, but I don't think we're going to get through it. So I'm going to start off with a super easy one. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal experience with adoption and or fostering? So who wants to go first? Somebody can jump in. Crickets. Y'all are not good at this.
I can go first.
Just kidding.
I'm the kid in school that I would always be just like, I feel so bad for the Sunday school teacher. I'd be like, all right, I'll just do it. And I would just share everything. And people would be like, okay, Sarah. Definitely an overshare. So I'm always pulling it back.
Same.
My experience with foster care and adoption is my husband and I started being involved in foster care in November 2018. So, oh wow, I'm thinking 4 or 5 years. I'm terrible at math. I'm more of an English person. But we were involved with it. Our first placement was actually the case that we ended up having the entire time we were involved. And it was our 2 kids that we adopted last July. Me and my husband, you can't see us, but we are both white, and our 2 oldest children that we adopted are beautiful and Black. And we have been, honestly, it was a hard experience, but it was also, I'm not trying to be over spiritual, but it was a holy experience.
Yeah.
Because there were so many miniature little prayers that I prayed that God really just answered. Like I really wanted a family that we could just make like the entire family our family too. Yeah. And we really were able to do that. We're working on our relationship. The whole time we had a really good relationship with birth mom, but right now it's hard and I want to give her that space for healing. And I've told her that I'm like, hey, this is a really hard reality to walk into. This isn't something you wanted. Yeah. And that's got to be hard, but we're still doing really well with our kids' grandma, their aunts and uncles, because that was so important to me, especially with transracial foster care and adoption, to just be able to invite their whole community in, because we didn't want our kids to lose their identity as Black kids, as well as lose their family connections as well. Because you can, I've heard so many people talk about how you can bring in positive role models and different things. But if you can involve the family, if they're safe individuals, do that, because that's what matters so much to the kids. When they see you, not just loving them, but loving their family, it changes your whole relationship.
Oh my goodness. So just so y'all know, Sarah is one of my favorite people in the world. And if you really listen to her, it'll tell you why. I have a couple of follow-up questions, and ladies, y'all co-host tonight, so feel free to hop in with it. I think for me, I've watched you be intentional about you and your spouse, educating yourselves about Black culture, about ensuring that your kids, you were like, hey, I made the choice, we made the choice as white people to love on these Black children, and we're going to make sure that they're proud of their Blackness. And so I definitely want to say shout out to y'all, because that's not a norm. And it takes extra work. It takes extra work to go out of your, I know for a fact that y'all have stood up, educated yourselves. You've been in book clubs with me. You've been in spaces where you're like, nope, I'm not going to take my kids to a church that doesn't look like them. I want to be in a diverse space because that's important. And but I love what you said about if the parent, if the family is safe, about still trying to hold on to those type of relationships. And I really want to hear maybe Anna Marie's thoughts on this. Because as you shared, I just thought about man, if I'm thinking about fostering or even going into adopting, I don't know that I would know to think hey, if you can, it's still good, because these are choices that maybe parents made that the grandparents maybe didn't have anything to do with, or the aunts or the uncles, or just that history, just wanting to know kind of that history. So I love that. Anybody have any questions for her? Any thoughts? Okay, good. Thank you, Sarah, for introducing yourself. We're gonna keep it rocking. All right, so Monica, can you tell us, your personal experience with adoption or fostering?
Yeah, so I have only been doing this since September of last year. So like 8 months, not even 9 now. And I've so far only had 2 full placements and 2 respites in my home. And it has been an interesting experience. We ended up getting 2 kids that were higher level than what we were actually licensed for, because they just kind of sent a paragraph about them and didn't give enough detail. And so it's been very challenging for the first little bit, but it's still been incredible and something we still continue to want to do. Everybody was always worried, like, well, we're just worried that since you got the tough kids so soon that you're going to quit. And I'm like, no, like, we're called to this. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And so we're moving forward. And I think that being that I work also in a foster agency as my job, that's been very helpful. I've been able to understand a little more about it than what your typical foster parent might, because I've been around it longer than I've been actually fostering. I've been working at a foster agency for almost 3 years now. So I think that's been a lot of why I've been able to just kind of hang in there and see more than just what the struggles of being the first time foster parent was. And it's been excellent because me and my husband are on the same page. So I've really enjoyed it at the same time that I've very much struggled with it. And I'm with Sarah on the family aspect and wanting to see the family involved.
Yeah.
It's challenging for some of them where the family's not healthy at all, and so they really can't. But for others, wanting to get them involved, because ultimately, most of the time, they're encouraging for families to be able to be back with the kids at some point. And so wanting to try and walk alongside them and encourage the relationship. So kind of got thrown into that for our first one too, trying to help with the family. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride for our first time doing it, less than a year now, but it's a good one. So, and I really like what Sarah said about hard but holy.
Yeah. Yo, that's fire. That need to be a new t-shirt, Zakia. But
soon as you said it, I was like,
right.
I wrote it down.
Right. But I love that, Monica, what you as you were just mentioning, you said, hey, it's hard, it's but it's holy, as Sarah mentioned. But also as you delve into, you mentioned like the point and the purpose of fostering is really to reunite. If it's safe, if the parents, and I guess for me, like, I never first of all, I already know that from my understanding, from my research, Black and brown people often, it is very high that you could get your kids taken from you because you can't provide some necessities. And so I didn't really think too hard on it until I really stopped and was like, wait a minute. But if I'm fostering, the state is going to help me financially to take care of the kids that were taken because their birth parent could not take care of them, and I'm not talking about situations where they're like unsafe. I'm just talking about where they don't have basic necessities. And so it's always strange to me the way that, human services is set up, where we will remove kids from their environment, from their community, from their families, for a money situation, for a capitalist situation, but then give it to somebody else to take care of them. Like, that's very strange to me. And then, or just people needing help. Like, I've been there as a single parent with multiple kids when I just didn't have, and thank God I was typically involved in a strong ministry that was available to help, but everybody doesn't have that. And so just kind of thinking through it, I'm glad that you mentioned about just reminding us, like, hey, the thought of fostering is not to keep kids away from healthy family communities, but it's to kind of be respite so that they can go back. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Monica. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more from you as well. All right, got my girl Zakia. You want to tell us a little bit about your experience, because yours is a little different. So I definitely want to. It's a little different, but as I told, I was talking about this with someone, and I said honestly, Black families been doing this for a long time. Like we didn't go through the courts, but I like my grandmother was definitely raising like some cousins. So like, and I, you know, their mom just wasn't around. So, you know, what about your experience, Z?
So my experience is a little bit different. And like Sarah said, hard and holy, right? Yeah. So I've had permanent guardianship since she was 24 months. No, 23 months. And so February 2018, right? And it was weird because this was the holy part. The Holy Spirit already told me what was going to happen beforehand, and literally orchestrated a trip for me to be there when everything needed to take place, right? And so lo and behold, I'm back home. I'll just say back home for a couple of days. We go in front of the judge. We do everything. And I'm happy that the Holy Spirit prompted me to do it that way, and to make sure things were in place legally, because now we're here 5.5 years later, right? And there are some things going on. But so the hard part, the easiest part was really just making sure she was safe. Right? Because ultimately that was the goal, to make sure she was safe, to make sure she was being raised in a safe environment and a loving environment. And you know, her situation, her story wasn't that at the beginning, right? And so there were a lot of things I had to help her unlearn, even though she didn't have language. There were certain behaviors and things that, you know, we know where it comes from, right? And so there were things that I had to help her unlearn throughout this past 5+ years, and she's in a much better place. So, you know her, you see her, she's happy, she's healthy. That's my girl. And she just loves people, she loves God. Like, she is an abundance of joy. And so I always wanted foster kids because I grew up when my mom had foster kids. And so it was something I always just wanted to do. I was like, oh, I want to get foster kids. But my ex-husband was like, I'm not doing that. So he wasn't on the same page, right? And so, you know, it just so happens that this is my blood, right? And God orchestrated it that way. And so it's been a joy. Just watching her grow, watching her learn. And, you know, as far as what Sarah and Monica we're saying about, you know, trying to involve the safe people, right? And so, like, for me, that would be ideal. If the people were safe, you know what I mean? And so the struggle that I'm having in that area is she's resistant to it, right? And so now I'm stuck between making sure she still feels safe, but because my situation is different and the courts are involved, they're trying a reintroduction period and she's resistant to it, right? And so that is the struggle with really trying to, you know, ensure her, you know, you're safe, you're here, you're loved, like nobody's doing anything that you aren't okay with right now, right? But we kind of we're trying to navigate between the two things, you know, and also trying to establish a healthier relationship with her birth mom, because, you know, at some point there was a relationship, right? And for whatever reason it dissolved. And so, and I get it, you know, when you go through things, there's a level of pain and trauma that comes with that. And, you know, you lash out sometimes even at the wrong people, right? And so really I've been in a space, especially this year, with really trying to establish a healthy relationship with her, because I feel like if she sees us have a healthy relationship, she will be more prone to accepting her, because right now it's just You know what I mean? And so that's a conversation I kind of had, like, listen, we kind of got to be on the same page, because she's going to remain resistant because I'm the only thing she knows.
Yeah. I'm glad that you, again, I think it goes back to what I said to Sarah, where it is the adult's responsibility to get uncomfortable so our kids are comfortable. Like, I don't understand why that's a hard value to get, but I'm like, yo, if this is my kid, it's my job to get on the, it's our job to get on the floor and color when we don't want to and we tired after work. It's our job to fix them food, and it's my job to get uncomfortable. And even if I'm going to be in a space with their other parent, their birth parent, or whatever the case may be, I have to do that. I don't speak a lick of Spanish, but my 7-year-old is Puerto Rican and Black, and we go to the Puerto Rican Day Parade every year. I don't know what's happening, but she just be up there dancing. And you know what's important? That she sees people that look like her. She's learned, they be teaching all of us like what to do. We're doing Duolingo Spanish. That is my responsibility. Like, that is her culture. I cannot ignore that. So I do have to be involved, with her family, ensuring that she meets them and knows them. So yeah, I'm so thankful for you, Zakia, and just have enjoyed watching you guys really walk through that entire thing. So we're gonna be talking some more. Okay, Anna Marie, the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
So I like to say, I think my story is a little bit different from the traditional stories that you hear of, children going into foster care or what have you. My mom was an addict. And so my grandmother raised me until I was about 8. And we moved here from Ohio. And when we moved here, we were homeless. So we stayed in a couple different homeless shelters. And I remember being in school one day, and the social worker came to pick me up from school and was just kind of like, I'm taking you to live somewhere else because you don't have anywhere to live. And so, being a kid, I didn't know, well, will I see my grandmother? Why is my grandmother not here? Like, why can't she be the one to take me? I didn't really understand it. And I didn't get that opportunity to kind of say my goodbyes before going to the first foster home that I lived in. So the first foster home, I lived there for about 3.5 years, went through some sexual abuse and things like that there, and kind of had to stay in that environment until I, finally spoke up to say this is what was going on. And so they moved me from there to a group home, and it was co-ed. So I think the boys were like on one end, the girls were on another, and I stayed there for a few months and then left there and went to my second foster home, which that one was cool. I actually really loved it. First time having my own room. I had my own bathroom, and it was just myself and one other little kid that was younger. So that environment was really neat, very family oriented. And I was hoping I would get to stay there, honestly. Like, I did not want to leave. And then they came to pick me up from there to take me to the third foster home that I lived in. So the third one was a lot of people, to say the least. It was a lot of people. So I went from the first foster home with about I think there were maybe 3 other people that lived there, to a foster home where it was just myself and another kid, to the third foster home where there were about 7 or 8 of us. And so I lived there.
7 or 8 kids? Like 7 or 8 other kids?
7 or 8 other kids, yes. And we were in a 4-bedroom house. So my oldest brother had his own room because he was the oldest. My mom was still legal, like she was legally married, but her and her husband were separated, but he just lived like on the back side of the house. It was kind of weird. But so we didn't really, we would see him here and there, but he didn't really come down to interact with us much. And so the girls had a room. There were 2 bunk beds and a single bed in the girls' room. So 5 of us in a room. And then the other boys had their own room. And there were about 2 bunk beds there. And my mom had a bed in the room with the boys. So that was my upbringing. Yes. So no one knew. And I used to try to hide it. Like, how, and I don't know if they still do it now, but sometimes the kids, like usually that first week of school, you would have to like put pictures of your family on the poster board to kind of show your family tree. So I would try to figure out a way to not do my family tree because I was embarrassed to say, well, this was my family this year, but here this is another year. My family looks different than the year from before. Wow. So I, would try to stay home from school or just come up with reasons as to why I couldn't produce the project. But yeah, it was a lot of us in growing up in that house. And I remember sometimes there would be situations where, the social worker may call in the middle of the night and tell my mom, hey, we have these kids and we have nowhere else for them to go. Like, we know you don't have room, but can you still take them in? And she would allow those kids to come. So, kids in one room, kids in another room, my brother in his own room. And then we would have other kids that were sleeping on the sofa or sleeping on the floor in the living room. So full house. Yeah, full house. So I was there until 16, I think, is when I got adopted. So my foster adoptive mom, she adopted me, I think around 16, because it was right around my birthday when it happened. And from my understanding, it was more so to get me out of the system so that I would not, still be in at 18 and be considered a foster kid, so to speak. But I did have, I had a small relationship with my grandmother for a little bit in the first foster home that I lived in. It did not last long because the foster mother was also verbally abusive as well. So she would make comments in regards to why my grandmother didn't want to see me, when in actuality, it was more so my grandmother had Alzheimer's, so she couldn't really, she had no control over us being able to visit and kind of what that would look like. And so when I made it to my third foster home, some of my biological family members, they did reach out and, were trying to get involved in things like that. So we were able to have a family dynamic on weekends, but it just didn't feel the same because I didn't really know them, so to speak. Right. I knew, y'all are saying, oh, okay, we're related, I'm your cousin, but it just didn't feel the same because I didn't grow up with them.
Wow. I mean, there's so much. First, thank you for being so transparent and really helping. I think you're going to help all of us tonight as we think about some of the challenges that come with fostering and adopting, and how to be better prepared. And so just thinking through your story, Monica, I kind of wanted to ask you, thinking about what Anna Marie just shared, do you think it was because her mom was so amazing and so willing at that last foster home that's why they kept putting, more? Because again, as I'm thinking about it, at first I was like, oh my God, that's a lot. And then I started thinking you know what? I actually only know the people on this call who are involved in fostering or adopting. So I don't, as many people as I don't know that many people. So then I started thinking maybe it just wasn't other people. And she was just I would rather them be where I know they'll be safe than to be out in another home where they might be harmed. Monica, just from, because you work there too, do you feel like something that comes where people try to, have to skim the rules in order to have the kids somewhere safe?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of skimmed rules when it comes to foster care, especially because with counties that are that have foster homes that are under their county, they typically can do emergency placements in the middle of the night when it's, hey, this just happened, we have to have a home. But typically you can really only do that from your own county because it's such a quick, we've got to get them in a home, this just happened, everything went down, we've got to move them. And so it's hard to call up a network that has another home in another county that could take them when it's the middle of the night. And so you end up having to be forced to figure something out within the county. And there's often not a great number of homes. And so I definitely see where they would put them somewhere where, first of all, they were willing, whether that's because they didn't have a backbone or because they really loved it, in the sense of, the reason, but it's, they would have put him with someone who was willing, who would say, yes, we'll stretch the rules with you a little bit. And then also put them with someone that they trusted to be able to have that many kids. I think what sounded crazy to me is the fact that it's this one woman taking care of so many, and yet they seem to trust them. And to me, that means that there had to have been a significant amount of care to some extent, which I'm sure that Anna Marie could kind of explain that more, but there had to have been a level of care that they trusted for her to be able to have that many in the home. And so, yeah, absolutely, there's not a ton of homes, unfortunately, that counties can send emergency placements to that are willing to take in the middle of the night, that have enough beds. And so, yeah, especially if it was like a sibling group or something, there's some places that won't take sibling groups. There's some that are like, oh, I can take one of them, but not all of them, and they don't want to separate them. So yeah, they end up kind of stretching and bending the rules a little bit to make it happen.
And really the answer to that is more of us getting involved, right? Like if we can, if we have space, if we have room, if we people are needed, like homes are needed, safe homes. Let me be clear, because if you know your home is not safe, I don't even want you to apply. But like safe homes are needed to do so, because everybody's not like Zakia, who is gonna say, hey, this person is, kin to me, I'm gonna take them in. Everybody's not gonna do that. So we have to. And I don't understand. I think I saw a meme many years ago, and it had like the number of churches in America, and then it had like the number of kids in foster care, and the number of churches far outweighed the number of kids in foster care and the number of kids that were waiting to be adopted, which I understand are two different things. And it made me think, like, I really feel like if Jesus said, suffer the little children, let them come, like I take that personal. Like I told my oldest son, he's 16, I'm like, when you get out, we signing up, because we'll have 3 still in the home, but we'll have space to be able to safely, house someone if they need it, and so I was just like, I don't understand why we aren't all thinking about that, which is getting me to this next space. And I'll ask all of y'all, like, what do you feel like people can do to prepare? Or, well, yeah, like, first let's get to the basic organic stuff. What can someone do if they say, I think I'm interested in fostering or adoption? What is something that people can do? Is there something locally that they can do? Who should they reach out to in their community?
I think there are a couple of options for that. There's 2 different, at least I'm speaking from Ohio's point of view, so I don't know how it is in other states, but we have what's called a network, and then you have Job and Family, or the Children's Services through Job and Family. I'm part of a network, which is someone that counties contract with that license families, and they send them to different counties. And so if you're interested, then what they would do is either contact a network that takes families in their county, or contact Job and Family Services. So most Job and Family Services websites will have a link that they can go to and say, hey, I'm thinking about this, an email or a number they can call. And then you can just research foster care networks in my county or something like that as well, to find some private networks that may be helpful, which there's a difference between the two, mainly what they can do, what services they provide, and kind of the account or the support that you get is different in both areas. Some is stronger in one area and then weak in the other, and vice versa. But ultimately, if they're really considering it before or in the middle of the process of contacting someone, do as much research as possible, just in the sense of understanding exactly what it is, and making sure they understand their motivation as well. I read an article yesterday that was talking about, if your motivation is simply to feel rewarded and feel good, get a pet. Because unfortunately with foster care, it is rarely as rewarding as it is challenging. You're rewarded in the sense your rewards in heaven, you know that you're doing good for the kingdom, you know that you're doing good and you're pouring out your heart, but it is incredibly hard, and so you don't see the reward as often as you feel the difficulty. So research and knowing your motivations.
That's transparent. Let me ask y'all this, now that we've kind of gotten some of the like hardcore stuff down, what is something that people can do to prepare for, to be a foster or an adoptive parent? What is something that, like, I feel like if you selfish, this might not be your calling. Like this, right?
I was gonna say the first thing I like is prepare your heart. Like make sure like you have a heart for it, right? Because it's one thing to birth your own children, but it's something different. And I love this child like I birthed her, right? But there's it's different to raise a child that you did not give birth to, right? So you have to prepare your heart. You have to have a heart for it. You got to be called to this thing, right? Because you don't want to resent any decisions that you made or resent even the people involved or anything, I think that's sometimes where maybe the abusive fostering people come in, right? Because now they've made this decision because it looked good, it felt good to make the decision, but they didn't have a heart for it. So I really think like the first thing first is like to prepare your heart. Make sure your heart is in the right place, and you're not looking to be rewarded.
That's good.
I would have to agree with both you and Monica on that. Like from Monica's perspective, I think a lot of, and this is just me on the outside, based off of conversations that I've had with other people as I went through my fostering, experience. But I know sometimes it seems like people are just in it for the money. So it's like your reward is more of the monetary piece of it, and you're not thinking about the kids themselves. But then on the opposite end, like you said, Zakia, with your baby, it's like you love her like your own. And a lot of people don't have that mindset. Even for me, like the first one definitely I didn't feel like, I just felt like I was just there. Like you getting the check for me and these other 3 kids, this here 2-3 kids, and that's it. Like that's all you care about. The second one was a little bit more homey. The third one, I didn't feel like she was in it for the check at all. I just felt like I didn't feel like that love per se. So, we got
like 10 kids. She had like 10 kids too.
Right. It was a lot of us. So, and the dynamics was very unique because one of the girls that was there was like her biological niece. She had went through some things with her mom, and so she took her in. And then my oldest brother had a set of twin nephews, I think. And so she brought them in. They had some things. So my brother was adopted, but the nephews were not. She was just fostering them. And then one of my sisters, like she adopted her when she was about 2. My baby brother, she adopted him when he was younger. So we were just kind of all in there. And then one of my other sisters was the biological to my baby sister. So it was a mixture of, the dynamics of the type of kids that we had. But like I said, I didn't feel like that love per se. So it was never, and even, I don't think I ever called her mom until maybe like 19, 20, 21-ish. And I think it was just something like random when I said it. But like she had been fostering for a long time. But like her family, I never really felt included with my adoptive family, so to speak. Even to this day, like I still, don't really have that relationship with them like that. So I think to answer you, my biggest thing would be to prepare your heart, but also maybe take some classes so that and I know that's something that's offered as well. But I think you need to kind of prepare yourself to learn to love a child that's not yours biologically, and try to determine how can you organically kind of give that child that love that you would want somebody to give to you.
Like going off that, like some of the practical things that I just am like is so important is whether it's biological children that you're preparing to have, whether it's welcoming an adoptive child or walking into foster care, go to counseling first. Raising children is heavily triggering. If you have any kind of trauma in your childhood, and growing up in America, we all, especially millennials, when they talk about like there's a reel going around about all the trauma we've just witnessed growing up as millennials alone with all the stuff in the world, go to counseling, because that is one of the greatest things I'm so glad I did, because so many times people will talk about how kids coming in have problems. We all have problems. It's just that if you haven't learned to deal with your own, you are going to become abusive. You just are, because it's heavily triggering. And if you haven't worked through your own stuff, and I mean with everything, like I have a transracial adoptee I follow named Hannah Matthews. And she even said that. She's like, why don't we talk enough before a woman gets pregnant? Have you been through counseling? Because there's so much in child rearing that just comes up with your own relationship with your parents, your own relationship in the world. So I would say go to counseling, find out your motivations. And going off what Anna Marie says, it's so sad to me that so many people go in for the money. If that is your motivation, there's better ways to make money. The money is not that good.
You could be a podcaster.
It's not that good. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and that's what I wanted to say too.
You make more money that way.
It's just not. Like, we had to like provide so much of our own money in. And again, it's worth it because you should be treating these kids that come into your own and your home as your own. We started college funds for our kids before they were ever in the adoption process, because we're like, we want our kids to leave here knowing like, hey, you have some seeds for your future. You have options, you have hope. Like, we believe in you. We are going to cheer you on. We're going to invest in you. And like, you can't do that if you haven't done the financial work. So get your finances in order, because if you're purely relying on this check to raise these kids, it's just not a good option for you. Like, you're just not in that place in your life. Like, you need to be financially independent so that you can literally take the check that comes in every month and pour it into the child, sign them up for extracurricular activities. Like, that was the saddest thing to me, because sometimes people will compliment me and be like, oh my gosh, like, I finally met a great foster parent in Cobb County, Georgia. And I'm just like, it made me sad. Like, that didn't make me feel good. That made me sad, because I'm like, I know myself. I am not perfect. You can interview my kids. I am not. I'm not a perfect parent. So it made me sad that they thought that was good. I just think that everybody should be putting in the effort. And then, speaking as a white woman, if you're being ready to invite children into your home, you need to be willing how to do hair that is different than your own. That was my first question, is where are the hair salons? What kind of braiding is appropriate based on age? What kind of styles can I learn to do my own? How do you wash hair that's not a different texture? How often? Like, and also I want to add to this, especially as a white person, if you've never been in a room where you're the only white person, you're not ready to get involved in foster care. You need to do that first.
Oh, that's so good.
Wow.
You're just not. Like, you have to be willing to go into environments where you are the only white person, because especially with foster care, like you said, it's a sad reality, but there are more brown and black kids in foster care. It's just a fact. And so you have to be willing to go into these spaces. And I also feel like that's a great opportunity to build a relationship with mom, because so many times you want to go in and demonize, be like, oh, they lost their kids, so they don't know anything. Talk to them about hair care. A lot of times, like, that's an opening conversation of like, hey, how can I best take care of your daughter, like, or your son? What do you do at home? Like, what can I do? Because it involves them in the parenting. So I would a lot of things is just put down your ego. You don't know everything. You need to step in and realize humbly that there's things that you can be educated on, that you are not on a pedestal, that you're all on the same playing field. Because as Monica said, and this is such a huge thing, foster to adopt is not a real term. Foster care was invented for reunification. It was meant to be a place where kids could come in and then go back out. And the point is now they have a built-in community. You can be there for these kids, their mom, dads, aunts, uncles. You're now part of their community, so that hopefully these kids never have to end up back in the system. They now have you in their life. Wow. All of you. That doesn't always happen, but I hear so many people going, oh, I can't have biological children, or, oh, there's children to adopt. And I'm just kind of like, guys, a lot of these parents are not what you think they are. A lot of them have been through so much trauma in their own life, and no one helped them. Try to start in that place, a place of compassion, a place of grace. Yes, things have to change. Like, even in our own family's case, like, I'm not going to get into details, but things eventually had to evolve and change. And it was heartbreaking. It's the saddest reality about adoption, because it's beautiful, but it's so broken. It's so broken as well. And you have to acknowledge that, because so many people want to be like, adoption rocks. And I'm like, No, it doesn't. Like it's like when you have to get surgery on a body part. Yes, you'll feel good after. You're like, wow, this is healthy, but it's a broken thing that you had to go through to have to go through that. And you might have to live without an organ, without a certain, but like all these things. And I'm like, there's kind
side
of
effects.
Yeah. So I think just be prepared for your expectations to be blown, to go in with humility, to go in knowing that you need to be educated, and just see these people as people. Because I think so many times you want to call somebody a case number, you want to look at them as just an outside, or just call them by whatever the court system calls them, but do your best to get to know them as a person, because there's so many stories behind the scenes. And just pray over every detail before kids come in your home. Like my friend, I have another friend named Sunny, so it's so funny. She came over and we prayed over every room of my home that these kids would be in, and I do feel like there's just so much power in the Holy Spirit. Like the Holy Spirit just comes in, and like even with my kid's grandma, when she came in, and this was the ultimate compliment that anyone could ever say to me, she was like, I felt like my grandkids were safe here, because when I came into your home that day, you welcomed me in and I just felt Jesus. And I was like, yes, that should be the whole point.
Awesome.
That was everything right there.
First of all, Sarah just preached the message. I don't know.
Sorry, like I said, I'm a talker. So like what I get is like, this is one of my passions where I'm just like,
listen, y'all need to do like a fostering revival or something. Got a word. Okay. But let me ask y'all about this, and I think Anna Marie kind of touched on it. But can you guys tell me, what is the importance of support networks for families who adopt their kids or are fostering or taking care of kids that are not biologically theirs? What are some things the community can do? Like, what's something that, hey, this was definitely needed and it was a miss, or this is something I've seen people do that was really helpful. I think Sarah mentioned, her, coming over, calling her team over to, pray and anoint every room. What are some other things that you guys feel like were really important?
So I think for me, because it happened so suddenly, it was like, although Holy Spirit kind of had spoken to me, he literally spoke it to me a couple of days before it happened, right? Yeah. And so I went on a trip back home and came back with a baby, right? And so in that, like literally, I went home on a Wednesday and on Monday I came back with a baby. And so I think the support that I had was amazing. Like, I mean, my friends at that time, like, they completely rallied around me. I was getting boxes of diapers, clothes, hand-me-down. Like, what do you need? Like, how do we make this successful and easy for you, right? I had literally just moved to Atlanta in September. And this happened in February. I hadn't even transitioned into my own space yet at that time, right? So I was still staying with a family member from just moving down here. But I think just the support that I had with people really rallying around me and making sure that I had everything that I needed, like from clothes to toys to money to diapers, just everything. They were like, how do we support you? And so I just really having just people around you that really love you, that believe in you, and that they're going to pour into you, so that was what helped me.
So I would round that and say, number one is when somebody, when there's a child that comes into the home, however, through fostering, or you're just taking care of them, or you're adopting, almost treat it like a newborn baby. Like, when you have a newborn, everybody gives you the gifts, like do the same thing. That same energy. We need stuff. Okay, good to know. What's something to say? Monica, you have one?
I've got a friend that for the last 2 placements that we've gotten, immediately I've reached out to and said, hey, this person needs a coat. And she sends me the money to be able to purchase a coat. And every time it's just one need, and she's like, all right, I got it. And she sends me the money. Not because we don't have it, but more just she wants to help. She wants to make sure that there's other things that are taken care of. And then the other thing that I think is really important, and I don't have it necessarily even though I'm part of a network of foster parents, is being someplace that the kids can go to for respite. Respite is short term, basically. It's usually up to 2 weeks, at least here in In Ohio, you can do respite for up to 2 weeks. But the importance of, if I had friends and family, which my family loves the kids that we've taken in, but they're busy, it's crazy, they really can't do a ton of like watching them for us, so that me and my husband can go do something, or so that we can like serve in a ministry or something that we can't take the kids to just because it's, you know, not appropriate. But I think that a big thing that people can do is choose to become certified to at least be respite parents, so that for up to 2 weeks or less, they're able to have the kids in their own home temporarily, so that the other foster parents can go on a vacation. That sounds crazy. I used to, before I started fostering, think that it was so cruel that foster parents would go on a vacation without their kids. And I was like, but wouldn't that make them feel unloved? But then it dawned on me, first of all, parents do it all the time without their kids. Like parents, like biological parents do it all the time too, where they're like, nope, we're taking a vacation.
I'm in Orlando right now in a Jumanji room and my kids are not with me.
Yes.
Listen,
and so I
I'm
realized like, no, it's normal
week,
because
so.
like my husband and I really need that time right now. And because again, it was 2 very challenging kids that we got for our first ones. And so, which by the way, both of them, one has already left and the other one's leaving us next week. So it's kind of weird that we're not going to have him in our home after next week for a bit. But basically, if I had family and friends that could take them overnight because they got certified, they got the background check, they got everything they needed, so that I could go on a weekend with my husband, that would be one of the biggest supports that I could ever need, because you need that time, you need that ability to take a day. And if you don't have people around you that the county says like, yes, you can have them in your home, then it's just all on you. And so I think becoming respite providers would be a big deal.
Oh yeah, I love that. Okay, I didn't know that was a thing, so thank you for sharing.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, anybody else? What we can share? Sweet. Okay, I love that. You guys are killing it. Okay, well, let me ask you this. What is your favorite memory to do with this experience? What is your favorite, other than maybe, you know, you adopted them, or was your first time, you know, getting home? What is like something that when you think about it, you just like, that was hilarious, or that was so fun? Is there something that kind of sticks out to you where it was just a moment that in this space that you celebrate? Like, ooh, I felt really good at this moment. Anybody have something?
For me, it was our foster daughter is 11, but she's developmentally delayed and there's been no diagnosis or anything. So she's got she also has seizures. And what happened when she came to us is she was regularly having absence seizures that weren't treated. Family didn't get her treated. And so she'd been sent from 6 to 11 having seizures and not being treated for them.
Wow.
And so she came to us not being able to do any kind of math. Even if you told her what 2 plus 2 was, she wouldn't remember it 5 minutes later because her brain couldn't store it because it was just always tired. And when we got her into care to start taking care of the seizures, one of my favorite moments after a few months was we were sitting there doing math homework, and she usually uses her little cubes to like count. So for 5 plus 7, she would put her cubes out and she'd count plus 7, she'd get to 12 or whatever. But there was a math problem. It was a small one. It was like 3 plus 2 or 3 plus 6, something small. And she just goes like this. And I saw her like look up and she goes, and she's like pointing. And then all of a sudden she goes, oh, and she yells out the answer. And I was like, what? And then she was like, I did head math. And like, she was so excited.
I love it.
Like, she looked just thrilled. And she was like, I'm so smart. And it was like this beautiful moment of knowing that like, because we were able to take her and kind of get her some of that like stable doctor care and stuff like that, she was able to have that moment where her brain was finally beginning to learn things and she could progress to doing head math because she was learning and growing and remembering things. And I just think it was one of the cutest moments because she really just, her face lit up and she clicked like, oh my gosh, I just did that in my head. So I think that was a pretty cool moment.
I love that. Thank you. Anybody else? What a favorite moment where you're like, ooh, this is good?
The biggest thing for me is like watching her really just come into who she is. She's very she's very outspoken. She's going to say what she wants, what she doesn't want, what makes her uncomfortable. And so I think just knowing that everything that I've taught her, like she knows I can use my voice and this is okay, right? And I'm gonna be heard, right? And so I think that's huge. And honestly, the other thing is really just watching her at her very young age of 7, like really love God. Like that is so huge for me, to watch her go and pick up a Bible, and for that to be her favorite Christmas gift that she got this past year. Like she was so overjoyed, and she got everything she wanted, but that was the most important thing for her. It was what she got happy about. And so I just think watching her really just come into who she is, know who she is, know what she wants, know what she doesn't want, and being able to verbalize those things. Because even, you know, when she came into the home, she wasn't verbal. At 23 months, she was, you know, she said 2 things. And by the time she turned 2 the next month, and then within 3 months she was talking. And so just, you know, with me having conversations with her and actually just talking to her all the time, just her gaining her language, and now just seeing where she's at now compared to where she was, where she had no language, and now, you know, just watching her come into who she is and just use words that I'm like, where did you even learn that? Like, because
Genius.
You know, yeah, you know, it's just like, huh? So yeah, I think that's huge for me.
I love that. Sarah, what would do you have one? You have one aha moment?
I have so many that are like so full, like that give me so much joy. I can think of like Court is just awful for everything all around. But I think at the beginning of the journey, I think it was amazing. And I think it helped change some people's perspectives, because like we would go to Court and we would pray with our kid's birth mom. Like we would laugh with her. We would tell her stories. And there was times people would be like, wait, you're the foster parents? Like almost expecting us to be on the other side of the room trying to villainize mom. And like for them to just see, like, it doesn't have to be this way. We've created, like, you guys have also helped create a system like this, dismantle it. That's all work together. Yeah. I think also just doing like holidays together, and like, especially that's probably one of my favorite joy moments is like when you can see kids be like, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be and. Like I can love you guys and I can love the first family that God gave me. It doesn't have to be like, I don't have to pick sides. And like for them to get a holiday like with everybody they love in their life, like it makes all the work worth it. Like you're just like, even thinking about like, I just had my first biological child, and like I know that he's going to call my kid's grandma, because he's going to hear his big brother and big sister all the time being like, grandma. And he's going to do the same thing. He'll be like, grandma. Like, and I just think that that's just so beautiful, because it's like, it just reminds me of God's family. Like it really does, like how you can just get united in what is really the darkest of times, but when God's light just shines into it, it just creates beauty out of the ashes. Like it creates beauty in dark places. So I think just the relationships that we've gained, and like everything that Monica and Zakia said, it's so true. Like seeing the development of kids, like seeing how your impact really just help change a kid, like help them learn to use their voice, or help them remember, like, you really are smart. Like let's do the work. Like, I don't know, all of those. And also it's really cool to see, like, the longer you have kids in your care, how your own personality rubs off on them. So like some of your interests become them. They start saying things that you say. Like actually one of my favorite things is I was getting really annoyed, because I told you I'm not a perfect parent. I was getting really, really annoyed at one of my kids one day, where I just was like, okay, this living room, like I just cleaned it up and now there's like things everywhere. And I said like, my God. And then my son, Jonah, just goes, Waymaker, and like there's a line about my God, so he starts singing it and I just start dying, where I'm like, okay, you were just the Holy Spirit to me, like convicting me, because I'm like getting mad about this. And he's like, my God, that is who you is. So like that's what he's singing. So I still love to think about that. I'm like, thanks God for using my kids.
So funny.
I love what you said about that personality thing, Sarah, because that's where we're at right now. And it's like, and I get surprised at something. Like the other day I asked her something and she was like, how am I supposed to know that? And I was like, never mind. And then so I'm telling my mother, and she's like, well, you say stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm not talking to you about it either. But it's just watching the things that I do and say. And now she's like giving me the faces, and she talks with her hands like I do. I'm just like, this is a lot, you know? This is a lot.
But it's so cool because you really do see like how like people be like nature versus nurture, and I'm like, it's all of it. Like it's all of it coming together. And so it's like so cool to just see your kids' little personalities and how your personality impacts theirs. So I love it all.
Yeah.
Anna Marie, do you have a moment from your perspective?
So my aha moments are they're a little different. And I say that because my experience was pretty traumatic, right? Yeah. So, and even though the second foster home that I was in, like, wasn't as bad as and I hate to say the other two, but like not as bad. I don't know. There weren't really like, even between the three, there weren't any moments where I was like, oh my God, like I love this experience. Like even now, like I hate holidays. Christmas is the worst. I am typically the Grinch the whole time during Christmas. My friends are always like, well, make your own, traditions. And I'm like, I don't care. So I think my aha moments were more so like, I remember growing up on like through the weekdays, we would come home from school, put our book bags down, and we would go straight into the kitchen. And each girl had something that we had to prepare for dinner. The boys would handle the yard and the outside dog that we had. So my aha moment was kind of more so, okay, when I have kids, like I'm not gonna make my kids prepare dinner. Like it's cool to do it with your kids, but that's not gonna be a necessity that they have to do when they come home from school. I want them to focus on their school. Also it was kind of more so like I remember on weekends we would get up early Saturday morning, and we would be scrubbing baseboards and washing walls with the bucket.
Me too.
I did that with my biological mama, girl.
Listen, when I say we would be up washing clothes, please don't wash clothes on Sunday. All those clothes, they better have been done by Saturday afternoon. Like, house got to be clean from top to bottom. Pulling out refrigerators and washing machines and sweeping and mopping. That was what we did on weekends. So my little aha moment, I was like, this is not like, this is child labor. This cannot be of the Lord. This is not right. And my mama was real religious, y'all, like real religious. So Wednesdays we were at church for Bible study. The church that I grew up in was AME, so African Methodist Episcopal was the church. So we had YPD meetings. I hated it because we had to wear these long green skirts that went to your ankles, and I was the girl that wanted to wear the little short, little cute skirts, and my mama was like, "You're a little fast tail." So I said my kids would not do that. Like we not doing it. Sunday morning, we getting on the church van. We got to go to Sunday school in the morning. Then we got to be in church. Lord forbid, it's youth Sunday, so we got to be in the pulpit giving the prayer and reading scriptures out the Bible, and we singing in the choir. And don't let it be the day that the pastor got to preach somewhere else, because we're going to that service too. Like, it was just a lot. So I say that to say all of my aha moments were more so the things that I hated as a kid or that I felt like was too much. I wanted to make sure my kids didn't have to experience that. But the biggest thing for me, my mom didn't come to any of my like ROTC competitions that I did. And so like when we would have practice after school, she was never the person that picked me up. She was never the person that would take me to school when we had competitions. So when we have to leave early on Saturday morning, she was never that person. So I just always kind of put in the back of my head when I had kids, I don't care if I got to leave work, call out sick or whatever, like I'm going to be the one to take you. I'll be the one to be there with you. Even if I can't physically be there, somebody else will be there, but just to make sure they had that support.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, and that was real, honestly, because some of the stuff that you were describing is like cultural Black family, get up and clean, put that gospel music on at 6 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday.
Mahalia Jackson early in the morning, horrible. All of that.
Yeah. Listen, y'all, my mother used to pull the clean dishes out the cabinet and make us wash them again. I was like, what kind of craziness is this? It's crazy. Now she hate when she come to my house. I put everything in the dishwasher. I'm not washing dishes.
That is crazy. But no, like I just think just hearing all of y'all perspectives, most, everybody that knows me knows I have a 7-year-old daughter who's Puerto Rican and Black, who is my birth daughter, and who has never met her biological father or had contact with her biological father. Again, as we talked about earlier, dangerous spaces, making sure people stay around it, but has always been really engaged with her by her maternal or her paternal grandmother and aunt. They are super engaged, amazing women, like just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. Well, just a couple of weeks ago, after we've kind of been praying through and trying to reach out and see if there was anything that we could try to work and salvage with her biological father, my husband said, okay, that's enough. And we started the process of her adoption, and it was completed last Thursday. And so she is like so excited because we've always been really like clear with her, like, hey, because he came into her life when she was like 14 months. So she only knows this is my dad. And so now, but I also didn't want her to ever grow up and not, like suddenly somebody be like, you realize you're Puerto Rican and your daddy's Black, right? So we always have been really open with her. Like she's, she always knows. And so now she's been going around telling everybody, like, just so you know, I got adopted. Like that
just made me so emotional. Like, man, because I see how he loves her.
Yeah.
Like that is his child. Like he loves that little girl.
Yeah, and I think it's like what Sarah said, like when we choose to do this, when I think about fostering, when I think of adoption, I think about these are children that I chose to parent, and I'm not saying it makes me love you more, but I am saying I understand that, my, birth children, it is different when somebody steps in to choose to parent them. And so I just love, all of you ladies, amazing stories. And I really hope that we encourage somebody today to just think, to take that next step, even like Monica said, like, hey, maybe I'm not ready for full on fostering, or maybe I'm not ready for adoption. If fostering is not, able to be done with a particular child, but maybe I can get, I think you said certified as respite care. Maybe I can do some short term to give those that can do that some type of reprieve. Because the truth is, y'all doing full time, like that's full time ministry. Just like Sarah said, like all of the trauma we got that we don't deal with, it's going to come out, or it's going to be picked up in the mannerisms of these children. So I'm so excited that you ladies were able to come on and just chat with me. I just appreciate each one of you all's stories. I cannot wait to hear all of the feedback from this particular podcast. And again, I just want to thank everybody for coming and listening to the Sunny Side View. Ladies, thank you so much. Y'all are like absolutely the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sunday Joy, and thank you for listening to my mom's podcast.